Greetings, Human Life Forms. I'm the Meister, and welcome back to the first kind of off-season edition of the OT podcast, joined once again by Thomas Bailey right below me.
Yes, sir.
Even though it is the off-season, we still got football games to preview and look ahead to because the divisional round is right around the corner. Got a lot of good matchups this weekend, but very few matchups, sadly. So we are going to get right into the thick of things here, but we're going to start with some wild card round recaps first. And recap the wild card round. The first matchup, which is on Saturday, because the Texans always host that Saturday game. Well, I wouldn't say host; they just always play on it. It is the Chargers at the Texans, where the Texans really beat down on the Chargers and just pulled the plug on their season. So, Thomas, what were your takeaways and thoughts on this one?
Well, I think they did pretty good for a bye week.
Yeah.
According to Rex Ryan. So, middle fingers to the sky for that dude, because damn, that was messed up. I wouldn't have gone that far, but I did pick the Chargers to win. So sorry, Houston fans. Congratulations. Now you play the Chiefs. So now you can be truly excited. This was a really sloppy football game for most of it. The offenses were pretty garbage, I'd say, at the very least. Texans hung 32 because of 2 pick sixes. Derek Stingley, a absolute amazing player in the secondary out of LSU. He is basically what Jeff Okudah was supposed to be for the Detroit Lions and what he did not end up becoming. Funny enough, who also plays for the Texans now, Jeff Okudah does. But this was a scoregami. It's probably the coolest thing I can tell you about this game, considering there was not much going on. But 32-12, Houston does very good in this game. D'Amico Ryans really proved me wrong. And to kind of touch on some winners and losers here for the first round, I'd say a massive winner. Not Houston as a whole, but D'Amico Ryans in that defense. Just what a phenomenal job by that defense. They played very well. They got to Herbert. They flustered him. And one thing Herbert's never been good at doing is throwing the ball under pressure. And in this game, it really showed that. The offensive line just couldn't get going for LA. They didn't have a run game at all in this game, and it really cost them at the end. And so, as unfortunate as it is for the Chargers, Herbert still has yet to win that first playoff game. CJ Stroud wins another one here in the wild card. Texans advance to play the Chiefs. Congratulations to Houston. I'll admit that I was wrong in this one. I was actually wrong for the first time, I think, ever in half the games. So there's that, which is unfortunate. But congratulations to Houston on winning this one.
Yeah, honestly, the way I kind of look at it, it's almost like a bit of a win for both sides here, just for the mere fact that no one really saw the Chargers kind of making it to the playoffs. There were a couple people that did, but the people that did in the beginning of the season, it was more sort of like a bold prediction to have them making it in their first year or whatever.
A bold prediction?
With Jim Harbaugh. Yeah, a little bit. At least I thought it was anyways.
I said bold.
Bolt. Oh my God, of course. But in this game, I think it really showed like the Chargers, like they're kind of like their biggest weakness in a sense was kind of their passing game, because you're like, oh, this is definitely gonna be a run first team and everything. Like we saw that direction in the offseason going into the season, and that was mainly their whole identity. But they have Justin Herbert and they had some good passing games, but they definitely
need some more. Can't do it on his own.
Yeah, I know. They need more receivers. They need more guys that can make plays, and Quentin Johnston is not one of those guys. And looking over at Houston's side, okay. Houston was, I think most people know if you guys have watched us before, Houston was the team I picked to win the Super Bowl in the preseason. So
this is why, baby.
Yeah, this is why right here. No, but that first half was really ugly. It really was. But I do want to say props off in the second half to CJ Stroud, because he had a terrible first half, and he really did kind of turn it around quite a bit, I felt like, in that second half. And it was the first time in a while, in quite a few weeks, that we've actually seen the offense being productive and CJ Stroud actually playing somewhat well. So I feel like that gives you some glimmer of hope going into next week. And then the defense, too, like you mentioned, it played outstanding. Definitely their best game of the season on the defensive side of the ball. And it's just a really impressive turnaround from a team that is missing Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell, and a team that's really kind of was just in a big muster for quite a bit. And the fact that they were able to kind of get out of it a little bit and have this impressive performance in the playoffs in the first round is definitely a good achievement for them. But nonetheless, at the end of the day, Houston wins, Chargers lose, Chargers out. Texans advance to Kansas City. As we look at the next matchup, AFC North divisional battle, kind of went how everyone expected it to. Ravens kind of pretty much dominated for majority of this football game. Steelers got a couple late touchdowns to make the score look a little bit closer than it actually was, but Ravens dominated. What were your takeaways in this one?
Lamar Jackson had a solid game, and as much as it pains me to say that, he went 16 for 21. He had the 2 passing touchdowns. He also had, I think, 85 on the ground, so very good game on the ground, although he didn't get a rushing touchdown. Really did what he had to do, though. And a lot of people are going to shit on him because he didn't throw over 200 passing yards in this game. But realistically, he did what he had to do to get them to win. And that's all they really did. In that fourth quarter, they were just pounding the rock, trying to get out of here with a win, stay healthy for the next round. They know who they're going to play next round, more than likely. Going into this game, they knew that it was probably going to be Buffalo. And if not Buffalo, then still going to have to play a solid team no matter what. So realistically for them, they knew they wanted to be as healthy as possible. So they kind of run the ball there, just get out of that game healthy. And realistically, for Lamar Jackson, not world-beating numbers. 2 touchdowns, yeah, it's still a good stat line. Only 5 incompletions on the game, very good game. And then on the opposite side, Russell Wilson and them, they just couldn't get much going offensively. It took them way too long to get into things. They had that really explosive drive to start the second half, but really outside of that, we just saw what Russell Wilson was looking like in Denver. So, it's just unfortunate for the Steelers team, but I said it coming into the season. If they made the playoffs, their ceiling is a wild card loss. That is their ceiling every single season until they get a competent quarterback back under center. Not saying Russell Wilson's not a competent QB, but at this stage in his career, I don't think he is the guy to get it done, unfortunately for them. I did not think that they were going to be too great. I know a lot of people that were really meat riding the Steelers this season. Shout out to Jay Howe if you're watching this. 12 wins was crazy, buddy. I told you. But anyway, with this Pittsburgh Steelers team, I'm going to be very interested to see what they do in the offseason moving forward, trying to see what they do. Are they going to go out and get a big game weapon? Are they going to go out and try to fix the defense more in the secondary because that also needs some help? They need a big guy up front because Cam Hayward's getting older. They really need a defensive tackle pretty desperately considering Keanu Benton is just not it. But we'll figure it out. Other than that, for Lamar Jackson, congratulations. A very good win here, starting off the playoffs. This is what you needed, though. You needed a wild card win. If they would have lost this game, Lamar would have never lived it down. So hats off to the Ravens for doing what they had to do. And for Pittsburgh, unfortunate how your season ended. But you should be happy anyway. It was Russell Wilson. So what were you really expecting?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, for me, for the Steelers, I know I mentioned, for the Chargers, even though they lost, I still kind of considered it a win for the organization and everything just to make it to that point and everything, bright future ahead. But for the Steelers, it's kind of the opposite a little bit for me. I feel like this was kind of feels like almost like a setback in a way because they were playing well. They started off the season 10-3. Russell Wilson was looking good for the first time in a few years. And then everything just kind of collapsed. And that includes the defense that just could not stop any of the ground game that the Ravens were giving them in that one. And really just looking at the team, especially in the second half, even the defense, there were plays where you could tell they weren't trying. There was this one play, I think it was a passing play. It was Lamar to a receiver or something. There was a Steelers defender was there, but he was fighting for the first down. And number 26, I can't think of his name right now. He was just standing there. He didn't even try to prevent the play. He was just standing there as he watched him get a first down. And to me, that's kind of where some of the people are kind of looking at Mike Tomlin now because they've made all these playoff appearances, have not looked good in really any of them. And you can blame the quarterback, you can blame stuff like that, but eventually people are going to start to turn on the coach at some point. I know people love Mike Tomlin, and I know at this point they're probably not going to fire him. So they're going to definitely have him going into the next season. So it's going to be interesting to see kind of where the team goes.
Yeah, it happened with a different Mike and Mike McCarthy in Green Bay. Everyone was mad at him too. He had that one season where he won the Lombardi Trophy back against Pittsburgh, oddly enough, but He had that one season where he won the Lombardi and back to the NFC Championship game, lost. Back to the NFC Championship game, lost. NFC Divisional, lost. NFC Championship again, lost. And it's just like, we're tired of losing in the playoffs. We don't care that you made the playoffs. We need you to get over that hump eventually. And for Mike Tomlin, he's just not. And eventually, I think it's going to end up leading to him getting fired. I know he has a ton of respect within that organization, and I know it's obviously not going to be this year or anything, but still, I do think that's the same. And then if you really think about this Steelers team, one thing that really concerns me is if you remember that year they started off the season 11-0. That year reminds me so much of this season because started off strong, went on a losing streak to end the season, lost in the wild card round to Cleveland, which in this it's Baltimore. But oddly enough, that's very similar. You have an older quarterback who's at the tail end of his career, Russell Wilson, Ben Roethlisberger. You have a young superstar wide receiver who's already been unhappy, Juju Smith-Schuster, now George Pickens. You've had these other pieces on defense like TJ Watt and stuff like that. You've had the pieces, but you can't put it all together and get these wins. And you know what happened after that season? They went in 3 straight seasons of absolute ass cheeks. So realistically for them, they can't do that again. They can't afford that. So something's got to change in this offseason. Hopefully they learn from their past mistakes and get through it. But unfortunately for Pittsburgh Steelers fans, I don't think this is a very good sign for what the future entails for the organization.
Yeah, one quick thing about the Steelers, too, before I talk about the Ravens here a little bit. As you were talking a little bit earlier about this game, name popped in my head, which would make the most sense ever. Like, it would just be the most Steelers thing ever to go out in the offseason and sign Sam Darnold. Like that just like screams like a Steelers move to just sign another quarterback in free agency and try to make a run at this thing again. It just feels like something the Steelers would do. But anyways,
I'm not gonna lie, I think they're just gonna run it back with Russell Wilson.
Really?
I really do. I think Wilson wants to be a Pittsburgh Steeler, and I think the Steelers want him to be a Pittsburgh Steeler because I think the thing for them is they realize that the bridge quarterback thing hasn't been working. And they've tried it a couple different times after Big Ben has been gone to draft somebody. But I think what they're really waiting for is 2026, when a guy named Arch Manning is in that draft class. And if you can wait out until 2026, get a decent pick, and then move up, sell the farm if you have to, trade a couple players, trade a couple picks, move up and take your quarterback. Quarterback is the first thing you need when you're rebuilding for these kinds of teams. It's the first thing you need. It's either one of two ways. It's either the first thing you need or the last thing you need. You have every other piece around you and you just need the QB, or you really need to start a franchise off with a quarterback and then work your way around figuring out what else he needs around him, because you have to work to a quarterback's strengths. And with Arch Manning, the kid can do it all. And realistically, for right now, I think you bring Russell Wilson back on another 1-year deal. If you run it back and you lose in the wild card like this year, what's the worst that happens? You lose in the wild card round, you get rid of Russell Wilson. Now he either A, retires or goes somewhere else, and then you draft the quarterback. Because you have the defense, you have a young receiver in George Pickens, you have Pat Freiermuth, who's a solid tight end, you have a solid offensive line structure because you've been working at it. You can upgrade that again this offseason in order to make it better for your rookie quarterback. And then the best part is, drafting a rookie quarterback saves you so much cap space, because everyone's like, well, they don't have that much cap space because Russell Wilson was on such a cheap deal. Well, the quarterback that you draft isn't going to be on a big deal either. So, and then that also maximizes your window further because it gives you 4 years before you even have to pay the quarterback because of a first round, the 5th-year option for the first round picks. So just throwing it out there, even if you're okay with a guy like Carson Beck in the next year's draft, as disgusting as that is to me personally, but I mean, they love their Georgia guys, I guess. They really do. They've taken 2 offensive linemen from Georgia in the last 2 seasons, so I would not be surprised if they do it again. But either way, for Pittsburgh, it's just you're moving backwards, I feel like, and it's unfortunate for them because of the franchise, the standard that they have in the building, especially with Mike Tomlin. And they're just not living up to that. And a lot of people are going to blame Mike Tomlin eventually. So they really do got to figure it out.
Yeah, that is for sure. And looking at this Ravens team real quick before we get into the next game, Ravens defense, I feel like it's starting to really heat up quite a bit here, which should be scary to some other teams. But again, they did play Pittsburgh's offense, which is
maybe the team in the background of your room here.
I don't know what you're talking about. But Yeah, well, I did just want to throw that out there because their defense did play pretty lackluster the first half of the season, and I feel like they're really starting to pick it up now. So that's a really good sign for them. And then the offense, that Lamar Henry thing that, everyone's been hyping up all season long, I feel like is really reaching its peak right now too. So I think that's another good thing for this Ravens team too. So they're going to be cruising along to the divisional round into Buffalo, but we'll get to that in a little bit. But right now, we got to talk about the Bills and their wild card victory over the Denver Broncos by a score of 31-7. And this was a really close game at halftime. Bills found a way to widen that margin quite significantly in that second half. And how did they do it?
This game started off about the worst way possible. I haven't missed the Bills game in, I can't even tell you how long. But the beginning of this game started with me not being able to get the game on my phone, just coming back from a cruise. So I literally couldn't watch this game on my phone at first. And I tried to Google it, and it was really irritating me. I was trying to look it up on Paramount Plus, trying to get my new subscription plan going so I can actually watch the game in the car. And I noticed we were down 7-0. And I was just like, this is really how our season's going to end against the Denver fucking Broncos. And then, sure as shit, Josh Allen shows up as soon as I do, and this team just started getting better. I first started watching after we were down 7-3. Denver had the ball right before they were punting. And so this game was very nerve-wracking, to say the least, to start this one out, because this offense really couldn't find its groove. But the thing is I feel like this is the week to get that done, if anything. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, if we're going to have a week like this, it can't be against Baltimore, it can't be against Kansas City, or even Houston, really, with how good their defense was playing. Like, we really can't have these kind of games moving forward, so it's better to get it out of the way against a team that can't do much on offense like Denver, unfortunate as it is. Bo Nix had that amazing first drive. I ended up watching the highlights back. That 42 or 43-yard touchdown to Troy Franklin was just nuts. But nonetheless, with this Bills team, happy they get it out of the way here early. I think they'll fix it moving forward. And the fact that they started out that slow and still dropped 31 points leaves me so confident, especially against the defense in Denver here. That's very, very good. Shout out to two players, obviously Josh Allen, but the other guy, James freaking Cook, dude, 120 on the ground, a tutty. Absolutely amazing game from James, number 4, the great number 4. Absolutely phenomenal job in this game as well. A little homage back to his former self against Denver as he dribbled the ball up the fucking thing again like he did last time. But either way, very solid game. Allen 20 for 26, the 270 yards passing, a couple touchdowns in this one. Ty Johnson scooped that one off the ground. Absolutely amazing. But this is the kind of game that we've been waiting for. Curtis Samuel, shout out to him on that 60-yard bomb of a play. So just great game for the Bills all the way around for this one. And I know a lot of people will say it wasn't a good game, but I think it's a great game considering how bad we started versus what the final score actually shows. It just shows you how much we can adjust throughout the game and get better. And with the way we have this team moving forward, the sky's the limit and the Lombardi's within reach.
Yeah, I would say for just to go back to the Broncos here for a minute, this is a great season by the Broncos. Absolutely amazing season. Phenomenal. Opening drive was insane. Like, that was like their all-time like high in the past 10 years was that opening drive touchdown pass. Like, that's probably the happiest Broncos fans have ever been at that moment right there. But
scaredest I've ever been in my life.
Shout out to Bo Nix too. I mean, he didn't seem like the moment was like too big for him. He did miss like a couple throws here and there.
But that was after they were down a lot.
Yeah, and it wasn't anything like how we saw Sam Darnold play in Monday Night Football. It was nothing like that. Like, it was just a defense that was simply playing well and a quarterback that was trying to do as much as he could in the situation that was really given to him. So, again, shout out to the Broncos. Shout out to Sean Payton in this really quick turnaround he gave the Broncos here. So, again, huge season for them. They're going to be a very scary team, I feel like, in these next couple of years coming up here. But for Buffalo, I do want to say specifically how good the defense played. The defense has been looking for a good game for, I feel like, quite a bit now. And I feel like you could still point at some issues like the third down defense, still missing a couple tackles, stuff like that. But at the end of the day, they only had one drive that ended in a touchdown, and that was a blown coverage on the opening drive for a touchdown. Other than that, held them off the board with 0 points. And I guess you could say maybe 3 points you could say because of the missed field goal. But I mean, still, that is a really impressive outing for a Bills defense. And Matt Milano finally had a good game. I feel like this is definitely his best game in the past couple of years because you know how banged up he's been. So that gives me a lot of optimism moving forward. And then the offense, you know, doing what it's been doing all season long, especially in the second half, like that crazy fourth down play to Ty Johnson. Ty Johnson is our Lord and Savior at this point. He is absolutely amazing. And yeah, this offense just continues to click. The offensive line continues to play well. And yeah, they're going to move right along in the divisional round with two great teams going at it, Ravens and Bills. But again, we'll get to that later. And now we're going to move on to the NFC wild card recaps here. We got the first of three being the Green Bay Packers really being killed by the Eagles here. I know the score is 22-10, but I feel like this game wasn't close from start to finish here. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on this game.
You'd love to hear my thoughts, really?
I'd love to hear them.
Yeah, that's the third time I've heard love, and that's the third time he was intercepted. 3 picks in this game was absolutely just abysmal from Jordan Love. Like, I don't know what happened to him, but it's funny to me. Wait, who was your Super Bowl teams? Texans, Packers, wasn't it?
My updated one? Or the one I had in preseason?
Your first one from preseason.
It was Texans over Eagles, actually.
Over Eagles, okay.
Peter Schrager had Chiefs, Packers, though, and he hasn't missed a Super Bowl pick in 6 years. Or 5 years, whatever
he did now, but either way, though, I'm glad to see you learn from picking the against the team that should have won. Like, I remember last year it was Cowboys Packers in the 2-7, and you had Dallas going to the Super Bowl, and you were completely wrong. Well, at least you learned this time that if you're going to bet against the Packers, it better be Saquon Barkley on the opposite side of that team.
Okay.
Barkley had a phenomenal game in this one, 125 rushing yards in the game. Just another phenomenal display from him. No touchdowns, unfortunately. He could have definitely scored that last one if he wanted to, but he chose not to. Chose to be a respectful human being and just not cause chaos. But as for the Packers here, I really liked what their defense was doing for most of the game. They were on lockdown for a solid portion in this game, and I think the best way to explain this kind of a football game for me is the fact that A.J. Brown was literally reading a book on the sideline. That's like the most eventful thing that was going on in this football game. You didn't miss much if you were asleep during this game. But nonetheless, for the Packers, a massive disappointment to me. Coming into the season, there was teams like there were a lot of people saying that they could have gone to the Super Bowl. They could be in the NFC Championship game again. They had all these expectations, and here they are, not even making it through the wild card round. They feel like this season's Dallas Cowboys, to say the least. Kind of a shitty situation with the division, with the Vikings and the Lions. But to be fair, all they really had to do was beat the Vikings in that one game a couple weeks ago, and they would have been a higher seed in this year's playoffs. However, couldn't get it done. As for the Philadelphia Eagles, another great performance from this team. The defense looked phenomenal in this one. 3 interceptions. Barkley got going on the offensive side of the ball. They really did everything they had to do. And going into their next game, they're going to need to do a lot more, but very good start, to say the least. So, congrats to Philadelphia. Unfortunately for Green Bay, your season ends a lot like the Steelers, a historical franchise that really hasn't seen too much success in the playoffs these last little while. But they're teams that you know are going to try to get over the hump, and they have something brewing. But I like the Packers a little bit more than the Steelers, obviously. I think they found their guy, but Love needs to play a lot better than that. And for Philadelphia, just congratulations for moving on.
Yeah, and for that Packers-Steelers comparison, I think the Packers are definitely in a lot better spot than the Steelers are.
Oh, yeah, they're in a better spot, for sure.
Yeah, and for this too, I know a lot of people are expecting like that next step from Green Bay when it seems like they didn't really move at all. If anything, they kind of went back a little bit because, lost the wild card instead of the divisional. But I feel like for this Packers team, they're still the youngest team in the National Football League. And it reminds me a little bit – Patrick – no, I'm kidding. But it reminds me a little bit of the Sabres, not in like the same way, just kind of like with the age, because they always say, oh, the Sabres are the youngest team like in the NHL, They keep saying that for a few years and everything. And this is the second year in a row the Packers have been the youngest team in the league.
The Packers actually were in the playoffs.
Yeah, I know, which is why there should be a lot more hope for the Packers still, because of how young the team is still. And I know
just
Jordan
compared them to the Sabres and said they should be hopeful.
Okay. Just for whatever, screw off with the comparison, all right? Just forget about it. But like you mentioned, Jordan Love does definitely need to play a lot better in the playoffs, particularly for this team if they want to really make that next step. But Jordan Love is definitely a capable quarterback of doing so. Just got to change up a couple things, and I feel like this team should be good to compete yet again next season. And for the Eagles, their defense is top 5 in the league easily to me. This defense has been absolutely amazing all season long. And the offense, Saquon Barkley continuing to play great. And I feel like a little bit, though, I feel like Jalen Hurts is like a bit iffy. I don't really know. I'm kind of getting a little bit more concerned with the Eagles for the mere fact, like, I feel like they're starting to rely on Saquon Barkley like a bit too much. Because like remember those few years when the passing game was like such a huge part of the offense, and they're like, oh, like Hurts has like this huge arm and he can also run with it. Like that was the big thing with Hurts. And now it's a lot of handing it off. And now when it comes to throwing, making those big throws, like it's not happening as often as it used to. So that's like maybe a little bit of concern for me. But overall, though, Eagles still a phenomenal football team. If they can get that part of their offense fixed, I feel like this offense is really primed for a Super Bowl run here. But Eagles win, Packers lose. Moving on to the Sunday night game recap, in which the Commanders got a doink in the divisional round, defeating the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 23-20 in a game that, is definitely by far the most entertaining game of Wild Card Weekend.
Not even close. It's the only game that was actually a one-score game, too. Realistically, for this kind of a performance, Jaden Daniels went off in this game. Just want to throw that out there right now. He absolutely shattered expectations this season and then did it again in the playoffs. Dan Quinn owns the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and he did when he was the head coach of the Falcons. He still does as the head coach of the Commanders. Phenomenal game by this team. Right when the Buccaneers drove down the field, I was like, oh, this is where Baker Mayfield's going to light it up and win them this football game. They get stopped. They get the field goal. And as soon as they got the ball and I saw Jaden Daniels jog onto the field, I just knew the game was over. And it's just like with Jaden Daniels this season, it's been absolutely insane to see what this kid has done. The 2 touchdown passes in this game as well. Just a phenomenal display. Got him down into red zone pretty quickly. They were just kind of gradually moving the ball a little bit closer for Zane Gonzalez. They were just like, please just don't mess it up. Just please. And then he almost did. But luckily enough, he hit it off the upright and in. He may have to be my favorite kicker of all time now for the simple fact he came out and said that he has OCD. So thank you for that, for everybody who isn't speaking. Zane, I appreciate you, brother. But as for Baker Mayfield, I felt really bad for him in this game. 15 of 18 and 185 yards passing. Like, you really can't ask for much more from that. The only thing he did wrong in this entire game was that fumble. Aside from that, he really had a phenomenal game. He felt almost like playoff Josh Allen losing in this kind of a performance, except Josh Allen doesn't turn the ball over ever. But knock on wood, I'll have to do that now, considering nervous about this Ravens game. But either way, though, just an unfortunate display for the Buccaneers. I felt like they were one of those teams this season where, like, they're still a winner because no one really saw them making the playoffs. Nobody saw them winning the division. And yet, here they are. They made the wild card. They won, but they won their way to the division. Not divisional, but the playoffs. They won the division. And as for the Commanders, they are the biggest winners of the entire season now. It was between them and Denver because neither really had that great of expectations. But they won their wild card game. The Broncos did not. Commanders are easily the winners of the season, without a doubt. Unfortunately, now for that crown, you have to play the Detroit Lions. So, unfortunate as that is.
Good luck.
But, either way, we could see an upset. You never know. Jaden Daniels has looked very, very good, but we'll see what happens. Either way, congratulations to Tampa Bay. Sorry to Baker Mayfield for how the season ended. I feel like if this was a healthy Tampa Bay team, they would have won this game. However, they were not. Mike Evans loses to Marshawn Lattimore in this one. Washington, good job. Happy for you guys, finally getting something right. Got rid of Dan Snyder. You're going to get rid of FedEx Field, and you won a playoff game for the first time since 2005. Congratulations. As for Tampa Bay, unfortunate, but we'll see you next season.
Yeah, and you kind of mentioned it earlier a little bit with missing Chris Godwin, because I feel like if he would have played this game, like specifically him, I feel like the Buccaneers definitely would have won this game.
For sure.
You said it was a win for Tampa Bay just to make it to the spot. I'm not sure if I feel the same way, because with the season Baker Mayfield had, he had
They made it to the divisional last year too.
Yeah, but like I feel like most people were kind of 50-50 on the Falcons Bucks on who was going to win the division going into the season. So the fact they won it was great, but like the fact that Baker Mayfield had such an amazing season, he had over 40 touchdown passes. I don't even remember how many games he had. Like where the NFL,
though.
Huh?
He had like 20-something interceptions though.
20-something interceptions?
Yeah, I could have swore. Like not interceptions, but turnovers with the fumbles added.
Oh, turnovers, yeah, but still 40 touchdowns, is like a great season for a quarterback and everything. And there's a chance that they might lose their offensive coordinator to this head coaching cycle that we'll also talk about a little bit later in the episode here.
He lost 8 fumbles and he had 16 interceptions, so 24 combined turnovers.
Yeah. Good thing they don't use total turnovers as a quarterback stat anymore. So
yeah, Lamar, you're welcome for that one too, brother.
But yeah, like you mentioned, huge season for the Commanders. No one really saw it coming. In the offseason, I did really love the moves that they made in the offseason, for most notably Bobby Wagner. Like that was a huge pickup for them. Which, by the way, he is going to be playing this week.
Dan Quinn. It's just I thought.
Dan Quinn too. Yeah,
I thought Drake. And
yeah, I felt like the big thing that was kind of drawing everyone back was having that rookie quarterback. Like even though Jaden Daniels is a great quarterback in college, like how is it going to transition to the NFL? You never really know. And we found out pretty quickly, and he's been phenomenal this season. They're going all the way to the divisional round. I'm not sure if they're going to get past Detroit, though. But we'll see how it all plays out. But we're going to move on to the final game of Wild Card Weekend. And it was a snooze fest between the Minnesota Vikings and the Los Angeles Rams. I feel really bad for Vikings fans. If I was a Vikings fan, I'd be really down in the dumps right now. But if I'm the Rams, I'm ecstatic right now, but I'd love to know your thoughts on this game.
If I'm being honest, there's the first game and the last game are easily the two worst here. I understand that the Bills game was 31-7, but that game was at least close for most of it. This game, I genuinely don't know how to make this an argument that the Vikings could have won. They got dominated thoroughly. 8 sacks, which is tied for the most in a playoff game in NFL history.
9.
9. It was 9. But shout out to easily the defensive rookie of the year, Jerry Verse. Absolutely amazing season he had out of Florida State. He had that return for a touchdown in this game. Stafford was pretty good in the air as well. A couple touchdown passes. Kyron Williams got one of them. Just very good game from them. As for the Vikings, if there's anything that you can really say about Sam Darnold, he's never been good under pressure. Even back to his college days, he wasn't good under pressure. I don't blame this game on Sam Darnold, is what I'm trying to get at. I don't, because here's the thing. 9 sacks. Are you kidding me? 9 sacks. They had as many sacks as you guys had points in this football game. That is absolutely abysmal, in my opinion. I think here's the issue. For a team like the Vikings, they've had a solid offensive line all season, and the offensive line let them down. They let them down bad. Justin Jefferson didn't have the game that everybody expected him to. Jordan Addison couldn't get open for his life. You had T.J. Hawkinson getting locked up by some random linebacker. What's his name? He's got like the long blonde hair. Can't remember his last name or anything right now. But he was locking up T.J. Hawkinson for the majority of this game. I can't think of his name. It might come
for the Rams.
Yeah, he plays for the Rams. It almost looks like Clay Matthews. You know who I'm talking about?
Hold on, I'm gonna try looking it up.
Christian Roseboom. Roseboom. There we go. Anyway, him and Omar Spites were just absolutely decimating them up the middle too. You just couldn't win if you're the Vikings in this game. The defense held on for as long as humanly possible, but the offense just completely shit the bed. And as unfortunate as that is for the Vikings, I think they were one of the teams. I had a feeling they would lose this game. I really did. And I still ended up picking Minnesota because 14 wins, man. Like, there's no way they lose in the wild card, and here we are. And so, as bad as that is for the Vikings, I really don't think that Darnold is the guy. I don't, but I'm happy for him. I still think this is a very big win for the Minnesota Vikings this season. Was 14 wins, literally second best team in the conference if you look at record-wise, as sad as that is to say for them. But second best record-wise, with Sam Darnold as your quarterback, you really couldn't ask for much better of a season than this. And I told everybody coming into the year that I would be right about Sam Darnold, that he was a very good quarterback, that he could make it work with these guys. And here he goes and shits the bed at the most important time of the season. Once a Jet, always a Jet. Anyway, very unfortunate for them. As for the Rams, thank you so much for winning for LA, for everything that's happening in Los Angeles right now. Prayers up to anybody who's dealing with that. But for sure, happy that at least one of the LA teams won. More than anything, I saw that there was a Toy Story meme saying Justin Herbert going back to his house after the game ended, saying we're gonna be all right, and it was an incinerator inside of Toy Story. That's
terrible.
That was the worst meme I've ever seen in my entire life. But either way, thank you for that win, Los Angeles. As for Minnesota fans, I'm sorry that it ended this way. And I don't know how you haven't offed it yet, if I'm being honest. But either way, I think they'll be back. I'm excited for what McCarthy can do. And on the opposite side, I'm excited to see what Stafford and this Rams team can do. They have some momentum coming into this, and I'm excited to see if they could maybe pull off an upset against the Eagles. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll definitely see what happens with that. And even though the Viking season definitely didn't end the way that they wanted it to, it's still a phenomenal season they had. Like you mentioned, 14-3. Their defense was great this season. Sam Darnold was amazing this season. And no one saw them being as good as they were. People were thinking, maybe 5-6 wins, this season. They went out and got 14. So even though a lot of people are probably going to shit on the Vikings and everything, they still had a phenomenal season. And I will say you are blaming the offensive line and receivers. I feel like Sam Darnold does have part to blame in this because there are some situations too where he could have thrown the ball. He had time to throw the ball, and he just kept double clutching it, pumping, just looking around, standing around.
Yeah.
He kept trying to make something happen, but he just kept holding the ball for way too long.
The one thing I'll say with him is when I saw 2 different instances in this game. So these are 2 sacks you can take off the list if you want. Make it down to 7. Still a lot, but where he stepped back and it looked like nothing was open. So he went to run and then ran into either his offensive lineman or just thought about running and then stopped running halfway through and then got sacked afterwards. And it happened twice that I saw, but either way, you can't blame just him at the end of the day. You really can't. And I still think that some of the blame's got to be on someone like Jettas. You're literally a superstar wide receiver, and you weren't getting open for most of this game. You were not. Jordan Addison, who's like the number 2 guy, he wasn't even getting open. Hawkinson, like I said, was getting locked up for most of it. He ended up having the touchdown, but it's just this is just one of those games for the Vikings where you really want to forget. And it's kind of crazy to me. They only lost to 2 teams all season, and they're out before wildcard weekend. So it's funny. They lost to the Lions twice and to the Rams twice. And so unfortunate for them. It really is.
Yeah, it really is. And looking at the Rams real quick before we move on, what a season they kind of had. I mean, it was definitely a rough start, and they really turned things on. The defense, I feel like, has been getting better every single week. And the offense, I feel like they're a very up and down offense. They can have games where they'll score maybe 20 points, but their defense will play really good and kind of still help them get the win. Or they'll have games like they had against Buffalo, or the game they had in the first half here where they just look almost unstoppable. So I know the Rams fans are hoping that offense stays clicking going into Philadelphia because they're definitely going to need it against that defense. 2 really good defenses back-to-back. First the Vikings and now the Eagles. So we'll see how they play next week. But, man, what a season the Rams had. I don't think anyone saw them winning their division and making it to the division round of the playoffs. So hats off to them as they advance. As we're going to move on to the divisional round predictions. 40 minutes in. Here we go as we move into the first game on Saturday at 4:30 on ESPN. It is the 4-seeded Texans who, shockingly to us anyway, have made it to the divisional round. As they're going to go now into Kansas City to take on the number 1 seed in the AFC, the Kansas City Chiefs.
I think there's two things about this game that aren't shocking. First thing is that it's Saturday at 4:30 and Houston's playing. And then the second thing is that the Chiefs are going to win this football game. Let me be honest here with you. Andy Reid has only lost one game after his bye week, and it came in his first season as head coach all the way back in 2015. It's not going to happen now. I'm sorry to Houston fans to crush your hopes and dreams, but my hopes and dreams have been crushed by this same Kansas City Chiefs team that you have sitting in front of you right now. So, to say the least, I feel no remorse for this situation for you guys. You're going to walk into a buzzsaw in this game. I think the Chiefs are not as strong as they are in years past on offense. I think this is going to be more of a defensive slugfest kind of a football game. I think we're going to see a tightly knitted game down to the end. But go ahead and give me the Chiefs to win this one, 21-13. They've had a lot of games where they've won by like one score. So I'm going to stretch this out as far as humanly possible. 8-point difference in this one. Texans offense doesn't get going. Can't get much on that offensive side of the ball. And if there's any complaint about this Houston Texans offense, it's the offensive line and the lack of receiver depth. And neither of those things are going to be good against a team like Kansas City, where the only thing you can really do is expose their secondary, and their defensive line is their strong suit. So you got to find somebody to block Chris Jones. I think they could legitimately have 4 people on Chris Jones in this game, and I don't think it'd be enough considering how bad that offensive line is. So we'll see what happens, but go ahead and give me the Kansas City Chiefs to get this one done, 21-13.
Yeah, I think we're going to kind of get some first half against the Chargers, CJ Stroud, in this game. I don't know if it's going to be super defensive. I feel like the Chiefs' offense has been starting to click more in these recent weeks, especially getting Hollywood Brown.
This is a Houston defense that had 4 picks last week, so.
That's true, but they also might be without Azeez Al-Shaair in this one, or Shahir, however you say
it.
Shire, there we go. Thank you. But he's been on the injury report this week, is not practicing. So we'll see if he practices today or not. But yeah, of course, one of the best defensive players.
You're playing the Chiefs? I'm sick. Oh.
I think I just tore my Achilles. I don't know.
Dre Greenlaw.
Damn. But I think the Chiefs are going to win this game. I agree with you. I don't know. Close it's really going to be at the end. It might be a 2-score game at the end of this. I don't even know. But let's see what happens. Chiefs are probably going to win this game. Hopefully they don't, just for the chance that the Bills might have to host an AFC championship game for the first time in my life. But we will see. And we're going to move on into the next game where we have another number 1 seeded team. And that is the Detroit Lions of the NFC as they host the number 6 seeded Washington Commanders. Who would have thought the Commanders would have made it this far? And this probably be I feel like this is going to be more of an offensive game. I don't know. This is a very interesting matchup here. I would love to know your thoughts on this matchup.
So this oddly just makes me think way too heavily about last season, where the Lions were one of the higher teams. They were ranked really good, and they're playing the shocking team of the season, the team that surprised everybody, which was last year Tampa Bay, this year Washington. And so here's the thing is with Washington, I think they're a very solid football team. However, if there's anybody that you can't win against in that conference, it's 2 teams, the Eagles and the Lions, and you're playing one of them no matter what, realistically. They knew that going into this, but unfortunately for them, they have to play Detroit, who I think is a little bit stronger. So give me the Lions in this one, 31-21. I think this is going to be a lot more offensive than the last game is. I do think Washington can hang with them for most of the game. They will. But a late touchdown will put this one out of reach. Washington falls in the divisional round, but like we said, massive win either way for the Washington Commanders. Massive W like your logo. But either way, the Detroit Lions, this is their season of destiny. If there's any season where you think the Lions are ever going to make the Super Bowl in my entire life, it's this one. And here they are. They're getting ready to go. So go ahead and give me the Detroit Lions to win this game.
I agree with you. I'm also going to take the Detroit Lions. And having David Montgomery back in the fold is going to be absolutely huge for this offense to get him going again. And honestly, with how it looked like, they might have not even needed him. But, I mean, it doesn't hurt to get David Montgomery back. That's for sure. And now you're going up against the Washington Commanders here, where, again, like you've mentioned so many times, it's already a huge season for the Commanders. And I just feel like in this game, it really comes down to, like, those playoff experienced teams are really the ones that separate themselves from the rest of the teams in the NFL. And this is one of those prime examples right here. The Commanders' first time in the playoffs in quite a while. First time they've won a playoff game in so long. Now they're going up against a Lions team that has that playoff experience, or at least has more than the Commanders. And I feel like that's really going to show in this game. I think Jaden Daniels is still going to have a good game. I feel like he showed that, he's not going to fall into the pressure in the playoffs. I feel like he's still going to play well. But again, at the end of the day, I think the Lions are going to take this one, get the win, and advance to the NFC Championship game in back-to-back seasons. And that being said, we're going to move on to the game on NBC on Sunday at 3 o'clock. It is the Los Angeles Rams at the Philadelphia Eagles. Winner, in our eyes, would go to Detroit for the right to go to the Super Bowl. So huge game here. Who do you got winning this NFC battle?
I think the Rams are very strong. I think they're a very good team, but if there's anything that's going to be a problem for that defense, for the Rams defense, it's the running game. And that is exactly what the Philadelphia Eagles thrive in, which is running the football. And I think that's what they're going to do for most of this game. And they're going to win because of it. They're going to win this game 24-17 is my score prediction here. I think Jalen Hurts has a solid game. I think that they get most of the job done early on in this game. I think it's going to be very close back and forth nonetheless, but for Los Angeles, yes, they're very experienced. They've gone to a Super Bowl with Matthew Stafford. They went pretty decently far. Even last year, losing in the wild card round, they still got a game of experience. As for Philadelphia, though, they've also been to the Super Bowl. They've also had these moments, and they literally can't underperform expectations any longer without Nick Sirianni's job being on the line. So realistically, I think there's a lot to play for both of these teams. Obviously, playing for Lombardi, obviously there's going to be a lot to play for. But for Philadelphia here, I think there's just so much on the line. I think they're going to come out here and they're going to play strong. They're going to play good football, and they're going to get the job done at home, and they're going to advance to Detroit next weekend as a number 1 versus number 2 seed clash, Eagles versus Lions. Eagles winning against the Rams 24-17.
All right, in this one, I feel like the Eagles' offensive line is much better than the Vikings' offensive line, so the Rams are not going to get as much pressure as they did on Sam Darnold last week. So that's number 1 right there. And with that being said, like you mentioned, Saquon Barkley, of course, he's probably going to have a great game. He always does. And like I kind of mentioned earlier, it feels like the Rams' offense can be a very hot offense, and it can also be a very cold offense. And I feel like they're kind of inconsistent in a way like that. And I feel like not a lot of people really talk about that. And now you're playing up against 2 back-to-back really good defenses. It's just if you're going to be able to keep up with that sustained success on offense, I don't know if I can fully trust that happening, considering, again, with how kind of inconsistent they've been throughout the season on offense. So I feel like the Eagles are definitely the safe pick in this one. So give me the Philadelphia Eagles to win this game. Eagles have a really great defense. They're a really good running team, and if the Eagles can get that passing game going again, like I mentioned earlier, it's a very scary Eagles team. Not sure anyone would really want to play them. So give me the Eagles to win this one and advance to Detroit for the right to go to the Super Bowl. As we have one game left, and then we all know what it is. It's the battle of 2 MVP candidates, Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, number 3 seed versus the number 2 seed. Winner most likely will be going to Arrowhead. If not, one of these 2 teams will be hosting the AFC Championship game for the right to go to the Super Bowl. So huge game here. Feels like an instant NFL classic. Who do you got winning this huge battle of 2 MVP candidates?
So to kind of start this off here, I would like to say that Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen back and forth MVP. This game is so crucial for a lot of things, not just for the team that wins, but for the team that loses as well, because the team that wins, the quarterback that wins, is going to be ruled as a generational talent quarterback, and the one that loses is going to be comically laughed at until the NFL season ends. However, with how this season's gone, with how everything's been, give me the Buffalo Bills to win this football game. I know I'm a Bills fan. I know I'm biased. I don't give a fuck. Fuck all of you. Here's why I think the Bills win this football game. The list of players that were not playing for the Buffalo Bills when these 2 teams met in Week 4. Terrell Bernard, Matt Milano, Von Miller was out with suspension. Amari Cooper wasn't traded to the Bills yet. Josh Allen was playing with a broken hand. Teron Johnson was out with a concussion. That's 7 people already. 7 different things that factor in. Not to mention that this Buffalo Bills team is just so much better than what they were back then. The Bills lost 2 games in a row at that point in the season. Went on an absolute tear. Lost to the lost to the Rams, and then lost the last week of the season when we rested our starters. This Buffalo Bills team is very different. And yes, the Ravens, you can argue, are very different as well. They have a defense now that's a lot better than what they were back then. And yes, I do think Baltimore keeps this close because they're a very good team. But if you look at the stats of these 2 quarterbacks, it's not even close in the playoffs. Not even close. The only thing Lamar ever had Josh Allen on was his rushing ability in the playoffs. And even Allen just passed him last week for the most rushing yards in NFL history by a quarterback.
Running back.
Not a running back. By a quarterback. So that's the difference between these 2 teams. I think the Bills are a very phenomenal football team. I think the only realistic team that could beat the Bills this season right now, in my opinion, are the Kansas City Chiefs, because I won't doubt the Chiefs against anybody. But I think Buffalo wins this game. They escape with a 27-24 win on home field. They are at home this game. They weren't last time as well. Another thing you can also add into the mix there. Josh Allen is playing with fire. And here's the thing. I think that it's fueling him that Lamar Jackson's the player he's going up against, because you're playing against the guy that everyone's telling you you're worse than. How do you think Josh Allen feels about that? Probably not great. So I'm expecting Josh Allen to come out and light up the sky in this football game. I'm expecting him to dominate. And I loved what he said in that press conference. We want to make it to where when the 4th quarter starts, we're jamming Mr. Brightside, because that's what's going to happen. And I think that this Ravens team is good. I do. But you guys aren't what you were last year. And if you're in the AFC Championship game again, so be it. But give me my Buffalo Bills to beat the Baltimore Ravens in this game. The game of the week by every measurable stat you can ever think about in this game. This is the game of the week by far, to me at least. And it's the last one. How fitting. Go ahead and give me Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. Mahomes and Allen in a matchup for the Lombardi Trophy. A trip to play for it, at least. Go ahead. Owen, what are your thoughts?
Man, I wonder who I'm going to pick in this one. It's going to be a great mystery. I agree with basically everything you said. I think the Bills are going to win this game. And especially in a game it's like 50-50 like this, how can, like, if you're not like a fan or like someone on one of these teams, how can you just not pick a team based on like kind of who you like more in a game? It's so 50-50. Even according to ESPN analytics, it's 50-50 right now. I don't think we've ever seen that yet this season. And it just shows you what kind of a crazy game this is going to be. And they also have the same point differential at both, I think, 157, I believe.
Yep.
And one thing, like you mentioned, playoff numbers between these 2 quarterbacks is significantly different. And the only reason why Allen is as many like 5 losses, I believe he has. It's like
he's played more games.
Yeah, he has played more games, but also the defense has been letting him down a lot more in the playoffs, even though Lamar hasn't been in the playoffs as much.
But Lamar's played 3 less playoff games than Josh Allen. Lamar has 11 touchdowns in his playoff games combined, 13 if you want to count the game last week. Allen has 31 if you count the game last week. 31 playoff touchdowns for Josh Allen to 6 interceptions in his playoff career in 3 more games than Lamar. You're telling me if Lamar got those 3 extra games that he's throwing for 20 touchdowns? No. It's not like you're playing the Jets every week. Maybe. Maybe if it's that, but when you're playing a playoff caliber football team, no. See, that's the thing with everybody is Josh Allen's also lost more. Well, Josh Allen's played more. But then you can't say that Josh Allen has better numbers because he's played more games. He's played 3 more games, you assholes. And he's got 20 more touchdowns. Your quarterback's fraudulent.
Ooh. Throwing some cannons over there.
I'm killing 2 birds with 1 stone.
Yeah, there you go. Back to what I was saying. 2 defenses that have been playing much better recently too. So that's another factor here too. And another thing, I saw it earlier. Zay Flowers is not practicing today. So there's a really good chance that Zay Flowers is not going to be on the field for this game. And if Buffalo can limit Derrick Henry and force Lamar to throw, he's got one less receiver to throw to. And I feel like that's kind of the spot you want to be in if you're the Buffalo Bills. If you let this Ravens team run on you, it's going to be on the nail biter to the end. I'll tell you that right now. And that's the last thing you want, especially if you're a Bills fan, because there's been way too many games that have been close and we've lost in the very end. And I really hope that's not going to be the case.
This game's a blowout, but I feel like if the Bills win, I feel like it would be a blowout.
Really?
Only because, think about it, if the Bills go up by anywhere from 10 to 14 points at all in this game, it's as good as over. Because Baltimore will have to throw the ball, which we all know Lamar Jackson can't in the playoffs. And so that's all that matters, is if we can force them into the opposite of what their game plan is, which is every offensive/defensive coordinator's dream, I think we'll be perfectly set, especially with how the defense played last week against the Broncos. Even after the adversity had hit in against us, we still found a way to get through it and not give up a single point, albeit a missed field goal, whatever. 3 points, even if you want to add that. Doesn't matter. And I feel like if Buffalo wins, I think it would be a blowout, although I don't have the balls to say that we're going to beat them by like 10 or 15 points. Like, I'm not going to say 31-14 Bills, baby, because then I look like I'm biased as hell.
There was I was listening to WGR the other day, and there was this one guy. He was talking to, I think he was talking to Chris Brown, Steve Tasker. He was talking to Sal Capaccio. He was talking to someone on WGR. But it was like talking about like score predictions for the game and everything. This one guy said 38-13 Bills are gonna win, and he went on to say how like the Ravens suck in the playoffs and everything, and how great our offense is, and like
I would never
anything
say
short of that would be a failure and everything. I'm like, oh my god.
I could see 31-17. I really could see 31-17 happening.
See, I don't know if I can see the Ravens scoring less than 20 points in this game.
I can't,
especially with how our defense is in the playoffs.
If they have to throw the ball, though, I think I could. And I'm telling you right now, if we win this game in a blowout, I literally think we win the Super Bowl. So
that's interesting. I'll let everyone ponder on that last thought as we head on to the final section of our episode today, and that is the head coaching carousel, because we need something other than just the games to talk about now, because we're slowly transitioning to the off season here, even though it took an hour just for the predictions. But we got a couple more predictions for you guys as the head coaching carousel with all these teams, minus the Patriots, because the Patriots, obviously, they got Mike Vrabel. So that's off the table, but we're going to get right into the thick of things here with who we think is going to be the next head coach of these 6 teams, starting off with the Jacksonville Jaguars, a team that had a really rough season. Offense kind of got in a disarray. Defense took a bit of a step back. So a lot needs to be fixed, but there is kind of already a lot of pieces in place for this Jaguars team. Who do you think is going to be the guy to turn things around in Jacksonville?
As much as it pains me to say this,
no,
I have to start off with Joe Brady. I think it'd be the funniest thing ever if it is Joe Brady, considering they took Mitch Morse and Gabe Davis from us last offseason. So they know a thing or two about taking things from us. Now our offensive coordinator. So here's the thing for me is we're in the day and age of the NFL where defensive-minded guys just don't work at head coach. The last defensive-minded head coach to win a Super Bowl was Pete Carroll back when the Seahawks won their only Super Bowl, 43-8 against the Denver Broncos. So realistically, the defensive-minded position at head coach is just devalued at this point. Unless you got a guy like Sean McDermott, you're really not going to be doing much of anything with a defensive-minded guy. With that being said, he also has Josh Allen. So you need somebody on the offense for this one. I think that if there's anybody that can unlock the potential of Trevor Lawrence, it's going to be a guy like Joe Brady. I think he is a phenomenal offensive play caller for the Bills, and he loves having 2 running backs to go to between Ray Davis and James Cook, obviously. How do you think he's going to feel with Travis Etienne and Tank Bigsby? Oh, he's going to be in heaven. And so realistically, I think that if there's any chance that he goes anywhere, I think the only team that he would leave the Bills for would be the Jacksonville Jaguars. A lot of people are going to be like, why not the Bears? Why not the Bears? Why not the Bears? I think that he doesn't want to coach the Chicago Bears for the simple fact he's trying to build something up with a little bit less, in a sense, here. I don't think that this is a team that they have the passing game, but he's not really a passing guy. He's more of a run-heavy guy, work off play action, work off this, that, like he did last season to close out the year. We ran the ball a lot more once Joe Brady started becoming our offensive coordinator. We ran the ball a lot more to end out last year. And so because of that, I think we're going to do the same thing here. Go ahead and give me Joe Brady to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Another guy I could definitely see is Todd Monken. He is a Ravens offensive coordinator, so I could see him going there as well. But go ahead and give me Joe Brady. Keep stealing the Bills, guys, I guess, Jacksonville, because we took the Panthers team, so we can do it. Okay, it's fine.
All right, I'm going to go with a different guy that you haven't mentioned. That is Buccaneers offensive coordinator Liam Cohen. With the season that Baker Mayfield had, it was definitely by far the best season of his career statistically. I think they kind of need a really good season from Trevor Lawrence, basically. You gave him all that money, and now it's kind of just like, all right, now it's time for you to play at like an elite level because they gave you elite quarterback money. So you really got to turn things around a bit. I know Trevor Lawrence is a bit banged up and everything, but you really need a good season from Trevor Lawrence. And I feel like Liam Cohen, with what he did with Baker Mayfield last season, would be huge for that offense. To get a guy like him in there, I know you're kind of looking around, no interested, but
my rebuttal to this, I guess, is that I steered away from Cohen altogether. He won't find him on any of my lists. He's not even in my top 3 for any of the 6 teams. And here's why. Baker Mayfield last season had Dave Canales as the offensive coordinator / quarterback coach as well. And Dave Canales didn't really Dave Canales got a head coaching job. Yes, he did, because, he fixed Baker Mayfield. But if Baker Mayfield's done it 2 years in a row, I don't think that was on Dave Canales, and I don't think it was on this guy. I think it was on Baker Mayfield. And I think that's all you can really say to that. I think for the offensive coordinator position, though, I think that you're right about that. Rashad White and Bucky Irving, he likes the 2 running back game just like Brady does. So getting ETN and Bigsby will be fun for him if that does happen. So I don't hate the fit. He also stays in the state of Florida because he's going from the Bucs to the Jaguars. So not far at all for him to move or anything like that. So we'll see what happens with it, though.
Yeah, we definitely will. But moving on to the next football team, the New York Jets. Another very interesting team, a team with a lot of talent, but the big question mark is what's going to happen with Aaron Rodgers, and if Rodgers leaves, what's going to happen with Devontae Adams? Lots of questions for this Jets team. Woody Johnson needs to get someone that can really steer the ship and actually make this team function. And who do you think that guy is going to be?
So I think there's a couple different ways you can go about it here. I think there's a couple different guys. I've narrowed it down to 2 that I think are the more than likely options here. Arthur Smith, who's the Pittsburgh Steelers offensive coordinator, and the other one, that being Rex Ryan, who I ended up going with. I think Rex Ryan is a solid head coach, and while he didn't play too great like last time when he was a head coach, I think that we've seen these kind of resurgences of like these guys going back to their former teams, like Jared Mayo to the Patriots, or now Mike Vrabel back to the Patriots, D'Amico Ryans back to the Texans, Dan Campbell back to the Lions, etc. We see it happen all the time. And so, realistically, I think this is one of 2 things that happens here. There's another head coach on this list that goes back to his former team. Spoiler alert. But either way, Rex Ryan, I do think, would be a solid fit for them. A lot better than Arthur Smith. I would laugh if Arthur Smith gets head coach of the New York Jets. Because once a dysfunctional franchise, always a dysfunctional franchise, I think. Arthur Smith is not the guy to turn it around. It'd be almost like Adam Gase all over again. But, I do think for Rex Ryan, though, he is the right head coaching candidate. It'd be funny if they go back to Robert Saleh. I know they would never do that, but I would absolutely die. But either way, go ahead and give me Rex Ryan for this.
All right, I'm going to go with an interesting name here. Vikings defensive coordinator Brian Flores.
Oh, dude.
I think with them signing Robert Saleh, I feel like that's kind of where Woody Johnson kind of wants to go, with a great defensive-minded coach. I just feel like that's kind of where he wants to go with things. And Brian Flores is another one of those really good defensive coordinators out there, and he's proven he could be a good coach. It was just really with those allegations and all that stuff is kind of why Miami got rid of him. And I feel like with a team that has as much talent on defense like the Jets have, I feel like Brian Flores can definitely get that Jets defense back to an elite tier there. And the offense is still really a big question mark because with what happens with Aaron Rodgers, that's entirely up to Aaron Rodgers. And I feel like kind of your best chance to get him to stay, if you even want to get him to stay, is a guy that can build, a good culture. And I feel like Brian Flores can do that. So I feel like Brian Flores should definitely be like a high up option for the Jets. I don't know if they're necessarily going to do it. I think they will. But again, we will see what happens. You mentioned Rex Ryan. I don't know if that's going to happen. We'll see if that happens. We saw what happened with Jeff Saturday, so I don't know. It kind of veered me away a little bit. I know he didn't used to be a head coach, but still. So give me Brian Flores for the New York Jets, going back to the AFC East. As we move on to the Chicago Bears, another team with loads of talent. Again, it's similar to the Jets a little bit. They just need someone to get this team to work together. And who do you have that guy being?
I think there's only one right option for this, and it's Ben Johnson of the Detroit Lions, the offensive coordinator. Don't get me wrong. There's one other guy that I could see, and that's Joe Brady. I just don't think Joe Brady's going to want to go to Chicago. You could also maybe throw in Cliff Kingsbury if you really, really want to stretch this out. But go ahead and give me Ben Johnson for this. If there's anybody that's going to get that offense clicking, it's going to be Ben. He's been able to make a lot of this work. The one thing that scares me if Ben Johnson does take this job is he's used to relying on a very good offensive line, and the Chicago Bears do not have such a thing. So, with that being said, that's the only part that would concern me for Ben Johnson actually choosing to go ahead and go with this. But he was also the offensive play caller at the tail end of the rookie season of DeAndre Swift, who is now the running back for the Chicago Bears. So he is familiar with DeAndre Swift at running back. As for the offense, he really does like to spread the ball out to a couple different guys. He got a youngster in Rome Odunze, much like Jameson Williams, not as speed demon like he is, but still. But you also got the little bit of a veteran in the room in Keenan Allen / Amon-Ra St. Brown, if you will. So you also have the option of the tight ends. Cole Kmet's pretty solid. So we really have a lot that goes into that. And then realistically, the best way to go about it for this Bears defense is just let the Bears defense be the Bears defense. Let the defensive coordinator handle that like they were letting them do that before Matt Eberflus. The defense was very solid at the tail end of the season once Eberflus gave up his play calling. You thought he would have learned from that, but chose to decide to end up ruining his entire job. So because of that, I do think that that's very important for them. So go ahead and give me Ben Johnson here. Let him take control of the offense and let the defensive coordinator control that defense. And I think you got a very solid team in Chicago.
All right. Before we started this podcast, I mentioned to you a potential bold prediction coach I'd have being signed. I have it with the Bears. I have a gut feeling Pete Carroll's going to be the next head coach of the Chicago Bears.
No.
I feel like there's quite a few similarities here with this Bears team and the Seahawks, which obviously the team he used to coach.
When the
potential with the Bears defense to have a really good defense. And you have a really young quarterback in Caleb Williams that has the potential to run a really good offense because there's a lot of talent in that offense. And it reminds me a bit of the Seahawks offense too, and kind of like their early days a little bit with Russell Wilson. I feel like there's kind of quite a few similarities between the two teams. I feel like it's kind of a long shot though, because Pete Carroll is getting up there in age, but he did get a head coaching interview at least. So maybe the Bears might turn to someone with that experience of being a head coach and being a successful head coach for a very long time. Again, probably a long shot, but bold prediction, give me Pete Carroll to be the next head coach of the Chicago Bears. As we move on to the New Orleans Saints, first kind of one of these teams that are in a kind of a bad situation here. Cap is certainly a big issue. It's more, of course, general manager, though. Team kind of underperformed, had their moments kind of early in the beginning of the season, but fell apart pretty quickly. So it's kind of an interesting situation. And if you want to try to keep working with what you got, or if you just want to, rip off the Band-Aid and get this rebuild done and over with. So definitely a huge spot to be filled at head coach. And who do you think that guy is going to be?
See, hear me out. If there's anybody who's going to sign a defensive-minded guy, it is the New Orleans Saints, and I think they go ahead and take the other coordinator from the Detroit Lions here, that being Aaron Glenn. I've said this since since Dennis Allen was fired, and hear me out. Here's why. There's a guy by the name of Clint Kubiak, who is the offensive coordinator of the New Orleans Saints. And Clint Kubiak, in my opinion, is a phenomenal offensive coordinator. He comes from the Kyle Shanahan tree. You know who else came from the Kyle Shanahan tree? Matt LaFleur, Sean McVay, and a fun little guy who resides in the AFC, originally in the NFC, in Sean Payton, who is also from New Orleans. So with that all being said, I think that you have to go ahead and give it to a defensive-minded guy here. I think that Clint Kubiak can run the offense. Let Aaron Glenn take care of the defense, much like you are doing with Chicago here. It's just a no-brainer. Let them do what their specialty is, which is offense and defense, because a lot of the problem is when you go from an offensive coordinator / defensive coordinator to a head coach, is now you're not controlling just one side of the ball. You're controlling both. Let them control the side they know how to control, and let your defensive or offensive, whatever you're not, control the opposite side. That's how you should have it go, and that's what the Bills have been doing. That's what the Chiefs have been doing, because the Chiefs, Andy Reid doesn't control the defense. Steve Spagnuolo does. And how are they? They've won 2 Super Bowls in a row, maybe a third. It's just how the NFL works nowadays, and it's realistically a great thing. Sometimes you get those coaches that are just good coaches, like John Harbaugh's, like Jim Harbaugh's, like Mike Tomlin's, where they can make something out of nothing. And yes, that would be great to have, but for this head coaching pool, there really isn't a guy like that. So go ahead and give me Aaron Glenn to be the next head coach of the New Orleans Saints. If this one doesn't happen, I don't know what to even say.
You know, I really love that you picked Aaron Glenn to be the next head coach of the Saints, because so did I. I also picked Aaron Glenn. The Saints are just one of those teams. I like you mentioned, like the defensive-minded guy. I feel like the Saints are kind of more one of those teams that kind of pride themselves on defense. And I feel like a guy by the name of Cam Jordan would absolutely love to have a guy named Aaron Glenn coaching this organization. And again, like for all the points you pointed out, all the things you pointed out, I mean, I feel like it's kind of a perfect fit here. Obviously, a lot of work to be done in New Orleans to see how this team will play out. And if they're going to rebuild, or if they're going to stay with what they got, we'll see what happens. Very interesting situation. Yeah, that's an interesting one right there. But again, we'll see what happens. But again, I agree with you. I think Aaron Glenn will be the guy in New Orleans. As we move on to the Las Vegas Raiders, is a team that's definitely rebuilding right now. They need a lot of pieces. They need a lot of players. They do have one guy. He's a tight end. You might know of him. And their defense definitely needs a lot of work too. So whoever gets this job will certainly have their hands full. And who do you think is going to get the job here in Las Vegas?
Well, you've already mentioned this guy. I think he is the best fit of anybody in this situation. And this would remind me of an NFC team. It's Brian Flores of the Minnesota Vikings. Hear me out. There's a team that just drafted a rookie quarterback high in the draft, who also signed a defensive-minded head coach in the offseason, who had a phenomenal season the year prior. And they are in the divisional round of the playoffs this year. The Washington Commanders did it. And I think the Las Vegas Raiders should do the exact same thing. They need a quarterback. Yeah, they really, really do. But here's the thing. They also need somebody on defense. And I think what you need to do is you need to take Brian Flores, let him be the guy to that defense, draft a rookie quarterback. I hope Shedeur Sanders. And then let him run the offense, because the one big complaint about the Raiders offense this season that everybody had was the inconsistency in the run game. Now you have a quarterback that can also offer the run game, meaning you can work off option plays, you can work on situations like that. And so the runner-up for this job was Todd Monken of the Baltimore Ravens for me, where they really work well off the read options and stuff. But that's hypothetical, because you never know if they're going to actually be able to draft Shedeur Sanders. So you can't go off a hypothetical situation. No matter what, though, you can take a rookie quarterback, no matter what. It doesn't have to be Shedeur. It could be somebody else. But I think they're going to take a rookie quarterback, and they're going to sign Brian Flores to be their defensive guy. And I think it's going to work out perfectly for the Las Vegas Raiders. I hope to gosh they do this, because that would be amazing. Who knows? It's the Raiders. They like to mess things up, but we'll see what happens. Go ahead and give me Brian Flores, though. I think this is by far, out of every team I've said on this list so far, he would be the best fit for any of these teams, and I really would love it if he goes there.
All right, I'm going to go with the guy that you already mentioned so far, and it's a guy that Tom Brady really wants, and that is Ben Johnson, offensive coordinator of the Lions. And this is one of those teams that needs a lot to be done with. I don't know how much Tom Brady's really going to influence this decision, but with a team that really just needs so much, and like you mentioned earlier, it's like a lot more teams are going with the offensive-minded coaches as to be a new head coach, and that's just kind of like the era that we're in right now. But I feel like in a situation that the Raiders are in where it's a total rebuild right now, you're going to start up with a rookie quarterback more than likely, at least you should. I feel like Ben Johnson would definitely be a good fit here. And I know you love Brian Flores being with the Raiders here, but I feel like Ben Johnson – I feel like Ben Johnson is kind of like the top candidate for most people's minds, just overall. It's just like the top option really out there. And I think Ben Johnson going to the Raiders, I feel like just makes the most sense to me, especially Tom Brady wanting him. So again, we'll see if that happens, but we'll find out in the next couple of weeks here. But moving on to the very last team here, the Dallas Cowboys, who let Mike McCarthy wander away and potentially get a job with the Bears or the Saints. Probably not, though, at least in our eyes. A team that has a lot of talent on both sides of the ball. They definitely need a running back still, that's for sure. This is a team that plays really good in the regular season, but tends to struggle in the playoffs. Who do you think will get that turned around in Dallas?
A lot of people are saying prime time to come back to Big D, that being Deion Sanders. No. I've seen a lot of people saying Matt Campbell, who's Iowa State's head coach in college football. No. You know who would make perfect sense? Kellen Moore, former quarterback from 2015 to 2017, back up to Dak Prescott for the last 2 years. On top of that, though, he averages 26.7 points per game right now for Philadelphia as the offensive coordinator. So not only are you stealing their offensive coordinator, but you're also signing your brand new head coach who you're very familiar with. And like I said, teams love to take players that they once had playing for them. They love it. I can go through the list again if I have to, but for the length of this video, I'm just not doing that. Anyway, Kellen Moore is a perfect fit for this team. I think he's a very solid guy. I think that everything you want on that offense, he can get done. And again, like I said, let him control the offense and let the defensive coordinator control the defense, especially with how good the defense was playing for most of the season. They were keeping them in games, especially after Dak went down. I think that this is something that they really need to do. I think this is perfect fit, perfect value for them. And realistically, I think that the one thing for Dallas right now is they don't have a lot of teams that are in a desirable fashion to go out and get the Dallas Cowboys coaching job. Kellen Moore is obligated because he played for the team. He loves the franchise. He was once the offensive coordinator after he got done playing. And so I would not be surprised at all if it's Kellen Moore once they announce who their next head coach is. But we could see what ends up happening. But go ahead and give me Kellen Moore.
Yeah, I knew you were going to pick Kellen Moore instantly when you said you had one more former player going to it to be a new head coach. I knew instantly it was going to be Kellen Moore. But I know you did mention Deion Sanders. And I am not picking Deion Sanders. I'm also going with Kellen Moore.
Oh, I knew it.
I saw a report earlier today, right before we started this pod, and I saw the report that Dallas put in an interview request with Kellen Moore. As soon as I saw that, I'm like, oh, that makes way too much sense. That's going to happen. Dak Prescott absolutely loves Kellen Moore. The offense was amazing when Kellen Moore was the offensive coordinator in Dallas. And I think having him there is just going to be a perfect fit for them because obviously he's been around the team. He knows the system. Again, like you mentioned, taking the Eagles offensive coordinator away and with an offense that just had a great running game this season, maybe he could fix that. I know they had Saquon Barkley, but still, I think that needs to be at least mentioned here. And it just feels like it makes way too much sense for it not to happen. We'll see if it happens or not. Knowing Jerry Jones, I think he's going to go all out to try to get Deion Sanders. But I think with this interview request for Kellen Moore, it kind of seems like that's not going to happen with that with them requesting for that interview. So again, we'll see what happens with that. But those are all the head coaches, and that is all that we have for you guys here today. So hope you guys.
I think it's the longest one we've ever had.
Hour and 20 minutes, yeah. But getting into the offseason here, we spent 40 minutes on the wild card recap alone, which is insane. But I feel like that was a little bit necessary. But hope you guys enjoyed this episode of the OT podcast, season 2, episode 19. Hopefully the Bills can get a big W on Sunday. We will see. But again, thank you guys all so much for watching. If you guys enjoyed the video, a thumbs up would be greatly appreciated. If you guys want to subscribe, follow us on Spotify. We're also on there as well. But with that, I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your week. And as I say, life forms out.